Whenever you're ready.
All right. Oop. Oh, it's not all right. I thought I was. I'll probably just turn it off. There we go. So I've got 7:05. It is August 12th. I'll call to order the August zoning board meeting.
Where's the flag go? Oh, there it is.
Oh, let's start with like a pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible,
with
liberty and justice for all.
Like we got Ramon join us online. So welcome everybody to the August zoning board meeting. We'll start off right away with the new business. Discuss and vote to approve the minutes of the May 13th zoning board meeting. And then the June 10th joint work session. So does anybody have any, let's start with the May 13th minutes. Anybody have any additions, corrections to those minutes?
Mr. Chairman, Jesse James here. Page 2, next to the last paragraph. Start with that being also clarified. Third line down, clear to right. I believe it would be proper for us to put irrigation / fire ditch rather than just irrigation ditch on account of our insurances on our homes. That ditch is a fire ditch because we don't have fire hydrants. In the bottom paragraph, same way, middle of the second line, irrigation / fire. On page 4, next to the last paragraph, ahead of the bold print motion down the bottom. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lines up. Or just Garrettson would like to incorporate a hold harmless agreement for the town and would like to see the easement of 25 feet abolished that Mr. Reed mentioned. Page 5.
Let me catch up with you there.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Yeah, sir.
No, that's okay. So we're on page 5.
Okay, I was on 4 the last time.
Okay.
Did you find that one?
Let me just look for the word abolish.
No, abolished was left out,
Oh, it was left out.
right behind 25 feet.
Okay. And that's on page 4.
5.
Now I'm on page 5.
Now you're on page 5.
Oh, that was on 4? Oh, sorry.
Can you tell me again where on page 4 that was?
Okay, the bottom paragraphs in bold print go up 5 lines above that bold print. They're on the right,
Okay.
where it says easement of 25 feet.
Yes.
I want that abolished. The word abolished
Got it.
did not show up.
Okay. Thank you. I found it. Okay. Now we're on page 5.
Yes. The third paragraph above the bottom.
Okay.
I've never received any kind of information that says clerk to clarify with the attorney, is it possibly reasonable for the zoning board to receive a letter from the property owner with an update? And I don't got any.
No, you're right. I did not clarify that. I didn't highlight it. That was my fault. So I'm going to do that now. Typically, if I have something to do, I highlight it. So that way, when I review the minutes, I see that, and I did not. But I'm going to speak to Clay, Attorney Buchner, this week. So I'll add that to my list of things to chat with him about.
All right. And on that list then, please, on page 7, 1, 2, 3, 4 paragraphs above the bottom, the dark print says motion to send both drafts to Mayor Bolt and at his discretion to poll the trustees. And we were gonna also take care of that. And I never got any notifications, anything there happened.
That might have gotten lost in the transition.
Okay,
So,
those are my
okay.
comments on the meeting. The rest of them was very thorough and very accurate.
All right, I'm just gonna highlight that as well and get that resent out.
Awesome. Thank you.
Any other corrections or additions, questions? All right, do I have a motion on the minutes?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we accept the minutes as amended, please.
All right, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
All right, we've got a motion and we've got a second to approve the minutes as with the corrections and additions. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. So we've got a 4-0.
And that was for the May 13th minutes.
That is correct. Then we have the Board of Trustees / zoning board meeting work session minutes. I guess that could be a question for Sarah. I guess we can go ahead and make additions, corrections, and then follow the same protocol. All right. So do we have any corrections, additions on the Board of Trustees zoning board work session minutes?
This is Jesse James. I didn't find anything that I wanted to speak up about.
Mrs. Ed, and also I didn't see anything else on it either. Roger or Ed, do you have anything? Okay. Well, do we have a motion to accept those minutes?
I guess Jesse James, not McBaxel. I move that we accept the joint meeting of the zoning board and the board of trustees on June 10th as printed.
So we've got a motion. Do we have a second?
Said Herman, I'll second that.
So we've got a motion and we've got a second by Ed Herman to accept the minutes as read. All in favor, say aye. Aye. 4-0 on that one. Those minutes we might want to keep handy for the next items as we discuss. So I know on the agenda, basically just rolled forward the items on the agenda from the Board of Trustees zoning board workshop. Is taking the recommendations from the Board of Trustees and the zoning board we can discuss and see if we want to make any changes or move forward with those. So the first item is to review the latest fence permit form draft proposed with the addition of the site plan drawing. And if I'm correct, on our last zoning board meeting, we did we had approved that with the updates.
According to my records, we approved it as Sarah modified it, but we added the permit fees space.
Line.
Mr. Chairman, as far as I'm concerned, that topic on our agenda has been dealt with. It's how the permit fee is now on there.
So it might make a note, Sarah, when we try to accumulate all these to one package as we send them to the Board of Trustees when we do,
Okay.
if you would, please. Then the second item was the renewal of building permits beyond the 2-year completion and update the fee schedule to reflect building permit renewal. On section 17-H. There was looking at minutes and recalling from the work session, Board of Trustees, it was pretty lengthy discussion on that.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to report from that meeting. And I felt like we pretty well summarized it to change the 2 years to 3 years and suggest a $75 permit fee as long as there were no changes in the original request.
Okay, look, and I'm just going to go off of the minutes from that meeting. Final consensus was the expiration 3 years from issuance with that $75 renewal fee with no changes on the fee schedule. With no changes on it, that would be on the fee schedule, and then a renewal for 1 year at a time after that.
That's correct.
Roger.
Yes, how did we get to a renewal fee on something that's 2 years old, 3 years old, whatever? How did we get there? I'd like to know what benefit this has to down Pitkin and people living here, contractors building here. I'd like to know why we're going to have to review their permits based on making the structure to do it, and then send them a bill or have them buy a new permit or something on something, a project they've already started. I mean, what is our purpose? What is the purpose of doing this? If you don't know anything about that process, you need to figure that out first. It's very inclusive. Tom or Harry, he'll tell you what documents have to be filed, what kind of plot plans have to be drawn up. All the stuff that's required to get a building permit. You're saying all of that is validated after 2 years and it has to be renewed. I don't understand where you're going with that.
So thinking back at the Board of Trustees meeting or work session, the whole idea of the building permits currently is that they are for a 2-year time frame. And we had a consensus of the Board of Trustees and the zoning board members that were present at that work session to where the building permits with all the required documentation were essentially good for 3 years on a permit. After 3 years, if you don't complete that that construction after 3 years, then there would be a renewal fee to extend that 1 year at a time. What is this?
How does that benefit people in the town of Pitkin?
What that?
I mean, you just trying to build money out of them or something?
No,
Is this some sort of, you're not done, so we're gonna punish you with another permit
well,
fee?
so the current zoning code
It
states that
says in 2 years, if you have acquired a variance, we want to know if you even started the project, well, that variance would go away. It has nothing to do with general building permits in general. It's my interpretation of it, and until it is written differently, 2002 zoning board, I'm not buying into it.
2022, if I can jump in here, Chairman. on, section 17, paragraph H. If a building permit cannot be completed within 2 years, the property owners must provide written progress reports yearly or more often at the discretion of the Board of Zoning Adjustment to the Board of Zoning Adjustments with an estimated time to complete the construction. And in our discussion at the joint meeting, the word completeness was highlighted. And we felt like 2 years up here wasn't enough. This does not, the $75 does not apply, by my knowledge, to anybody that has a 2-year permit that's even 10 years old. This is a new structure
Well,
for section 17.
yeah, this is in a zoning ordinance. We are not building department. It says we do not issue building permits. I don't know if you realize what that means. We do not issue building permits. We issue variances that's requested from us to make a variance, and we can control the variance, but that's Tom's job. And expecting him to keep up with every building project, and then say, oh, you're a day over, now you gotta come buy another permit. I don't buy into that.
This is one of the items that we have visited with the previous mayor and with the attorney, that we had to clarify this section 8 of, paragraph H of section 17, so that everybody could understand it. And that word completeness keeps coming around. So this proposal is from the day the trustees approve or disapprove our suggestion, rather than going back to past history permits that have expired or have not been completed. Yeah, it's not to milk money out of people or anything. It's just to encourage somebody to complete their projects.
Why are we that concerned about that? Is it the tax issue or what?
I don't, it falls under the ordinance that was adopted in 22.
The ordinance that was adopted in 22, as Jesse read,
Cannot write in our ordinance that building permit is going to expire.
well, it's been written in 2022, it's written into the zoning code. No, that has no, this says nothing about a variance. It's built into the zoning code.
Tom Paul, when he writes up a building permit, he has his own set of rules. It includes everything. We do not have that detail in our ordinance. This shouldn't be under you. You're trying. I don't understand why you want to issue a building permit and say it expires in 2 years, 3 years or what?
Well, I can tell you that Gunnison County is pretty distinct in their building codes and their building permits, and says that if you do not start construction within 180 days,
Yeah.
your permit is invalid and expires. And if you have any time frame of 180 days that you don't have any progress on your construction, your permit expires. In period. We did a research of a number of different towns and looked at their building permits. And most have a building permit that expires after 12 months. In the 2020,
Don't start.
no, if you don't have it completed in 12 months,
Oh, that's about.
well, Roger, you should probably do some
Well,
research.
why don't you go live in those towns? Huh? They probably have paid people to sit here and make all that bullshit up.
Well, Roger, in 2022, the zoning code states,
Yeah, if they get a variance, they have to move up on it or send it
That-
some kind of an.
show me where it says a variance. Show me where it says a
Nothing
variance.
to say about Tom and his building.
Variance is not the question before it's on this agenda item.
And it's not listed as the last item, now you guys threw it in on building permit, when you get one, written on the bottom now, it says it expired. But we went 50 years without building permits ever expiring in this town. We're doing just fine.
by your interpretation. Others in town say that's not
You
true.
know, year round now, you can build 12 months out of the year.
And Roger, that's what was taken into account with the Board of Trustees is
I
our
don't
current,
think they've ever built it.
excuse me, I'm speaking. In the Board of Trustees workshop, we reviewed that the current code says after 2 years, you've got to give an update. The Board of Trustees with the zoning board that were present said in Pitkin, because of our short construction timeframes, maybe we ought to extend that to 3 years. And that's what the proposal, the consensus was an expiration from 3 years from issuance. And then if you go the 3 years, so things don't drag out and we don't have houses in town with titles sitting on them for 7 or 8 years, then
What are you gonna do with it? Ask them by a new permit, we got one down, we got some post office down there, you go ask her for another permit, she's gonna tell you where to stick it. It's gonna sit there with house wrap on it, PK on for the next 2 years.
That's her choice, but it may be pushed by our attorney.
I wouldn't even go down and say, don't finish that house and you can get another building permit. She doesn't intend to finish it with the building.
And you can speak for her.
If you think you're gonna change it with that little paragraph that says you're gonna fail in 2 years if you don't get your job done. It's ridiculous if you think this is gonna solve Pitkin's problem.
I don't think anybody said it's going to solve all the problems.
And it's not gonna solve any problem.
But we're addressing one issue at a time.
Well, tell me a problem it will resolve in the town of Pitkin.
So we don't have lingering construction going on.
What's wrong with that? Our road construction is lingering forever.
That has nothing to do with building permits, Roger, getting way off topic.
I mean, what is so special about Pitkin that it has to, every little project has to be done in your time frame?
It's a town's time frame, not our president of the zoning board's time frame.
Roger, I had absolutely nothing to do with this 2022 zoning code. It says 2 years. The revision we're trying to make is actually lengthy.
My friend, since, you don't know what a variance committee is, you don't know what this thing was written up originally to do. It's provide variances for people who couldn't live within the ordinances and the setbacks that we have. They had nothing to do with general construction.
Show me where that's stated in this current 2022
Well,
ordinance.
do we issue general construction permits?
If you look on a building permit
Answer my
form,
question. Do we issue those permits?
no, we sign off on them that they're meeting the setbacks and the restrictions of the zoning code. And our building inspector brings it to us after he has looked at it. And then we verify when we sign at the bottom to zoning board members.
And that is basic plot plan, setbacks? Or does that automatically make everything we write into a zoning amendment, you know, interpret as something that Tom has to follow?
It's Tom's responsibility to see that the people with a certified, bonded, engineered plan is met. And we sign off on it that the setbacks and the zoning codes are met.
That doesn't make anything to do with the time limit on whether it's not like.
It's part of that time, it's part of that permit. This permit that I just was showing you, that we sign at the bottom, supports H of section 17.
No, it doesn't, but that's all right. You want to interpret that way?
That's the way our attorney.
I believe that's the way our attorney is interpreted as well, Roger. That's why we're discussing.
He hasn't been in this town 50 years.
That's true.
Well, Roger, can I ask a question?
Yes.
Okay, just to play devil's advocate, you're not comfortable with the 3-year end result of the building permit. What would you suggest then? That we just let somebody willy-nilly pull out a building permit, dig a hole in the ground, partially build something, then we're just supposed to not look at it, just leave it sitting there unfinished for 10 years? I think there has to be a line drawn in the sand somewhere. And I don't think 3 years is unreasonable to ask somebody that is serious about putting a building or structure up, that they comply with the 3 years. And it's not unreasonable to ask for, the letter of saying, well, I'm having trouble, financial difficulties, or we're having a building, supply shortage or whatever. Seems pretty reasonable to me. Not like we're asking for, from them.
Every building permit I've ever bought, and over 100 of them, it says, as long as construction is under progress, the permit is valid. If they nail one board up, it's in progress. You guys want to say it's got to be complete.
How did your zoning read in 2002?
So where did we get to where we have to now?
We was not us group right up here.
I mean, where do we dictate what, contractors and everybody now have to do in Pitkin? If I were still in business in Pitkin, Colorado, I wouldn't take another contract to build another home. I would say, you guys just pick this up,
Todd and Phil seem to be okay with it.
Well, they like it, that's fine. I mean, super duper.
And I can give you reports of 4 people in the last year that have stepped right up to the plate and at the end of the 2 years gave us a progress report. And no problem.
Yep, progress report is exactly what that was intended to do.
But what do you do after 2, 3, 4, 5 years of that progress report not being filed and no intention of finishing it? Where's the closure come? The completeness certificate of occupancy. How did we ever get there?
You don't.
Like,
We sell half-finished projects all the time.
well,
If someone gets to the point where they can't finish them, they usually sell the project. And you know what? The next person buys it says, is this permit still valid? You say no, and they say, well, all I've got is the dang foundation on the ground, no permit to build the place. I'll give you $5 for your property, get it to work. It requires way too much to get this off the ground and move it again. I give you a 500 if it was vacant lot, but you started something, your permit expired. The thing's not worth nothing.
Buyer beware.
But
And when you buy that property, you buy it in existing condition. You're not buying the building permit that goes with it.
I get it. If you don't have the money to build this town, don't show up here.
Well, that's a good idea, but how do you enforce?
Down at the sign, out there, so everybody knows. You don't have the money to build.
It's in a sign right here in the ordinances of Pitkin, 2022.
Well, I didn't understand it that way. How you expected the other 100 people in town to read?
I think you're sort of out on a limb.
I mean, it's Tom's job to sell him a permit. You want him to preach this to the people? Don't buy this building permit unless you can do it in 3 years. I mean, is that what you want him to say?
No, he's going to share with the builder an ordinance as it's printed.
Same deal.
It's black and white. That's, the trustees asked us as a zoning board to show what the black and white.
White red.
Well,
Is that what you want Tom to tell people when they buy a building permit in this town?
No, what we would expect any building inspector to say, or anybody that comes to build in this town, is to understand that if this is passed for 3 years, they have 3 years to complete their construction. If they don't complete it in 3 years, then there will be a renewal fee for $75 for a year. The whole intent behind that is to keep progress going on that construction.
completeness is what came out of the meeting.
to get closure.
Get closure on it, because right now we've had some construction that was started before the 2022, before this was in place, that is still ongoing. And there's not a whole lot we can do about it. So I think we're at the point, we've had some good discussion here. I understand somewhat of where you're coming from. We had a final consensus for the Board of Trustees and the zoning board members that were present at that workshop. I'm going to ask for a motion to accept the final consensus as it was determined by the Board of Trustees and the attending zoning board members at the workshop.
I'm gonna make a motion directly, but, evidently, Roger, you know something about a variance and a zoning board of adjustments that's never been brought to this table or the trustees table while I've been involved. So, therefore, following up on our trustees' request that we make that section 17, paragraph H more understandable, more plain, that we go with what we put in the workshop minutes. And it's on the second page of those minutes. And the gist of it is the 2 years will be extended to 3 years. And if the third year is expired, they will pay another $75 for another 3 years, 1 year at a time. And they will also make no changes in the first 3 years, how you state that, but their first permit, their blueprint has not changed. If it's changed, then it's a whole nother ballgame. So the primary differences from the permit 22 to the current recommendation of the trustees is that we increase it to 3 years. And at the end of 3 years, we have a $75 renewal fee. If there are no changes in the engineered design of the original building permit. I hope, Sarah, you can figure that Dutch talk out.
Now, is this changed the square footage or what?
No,
What kind of changes you talking about?
the ones I just stated.
No, I mean, no changes to the original building permit.
Okay, if you have a building permit today for a 40 by 60 home, and 3 years later it's expired and you haven't finished that home, and now you want a 800 square feet.
Yeah, that's square footage. That's what.
That's a change.
Yeah.
Therefore, you're gonna start over. Now, you may be dealing with the footings you have, you may be dealing with the framing you have, but when you change that engineered design, then it's a whole new ballgame again. You're gonna go back to square one.
Yeah, not all these changes are structural or square footage changes.
Well, if you-
The window changes, all kinds of different changes. That, you know, if there isn't one, you didn't finish the job, usually, that's what it boils down.
Hmm.
Working with, you know, people building a home, they're gonna make changes. They're gonna change floor plan around a little bit, nominate the wife wanting a bigger bathroom or something else. I mean, you know, it happens all the time. I just question you what kind of change you want.
Basically, square footage, your footprint. That is the basic change that was gonna require a new permit.
Okay, well, I think we need to add that, so that it's clarified, square footage.
Okay. So would you like to have it read square footage and or footprint? I don't think I want to get into moving the bathroom wall a foot over for the toilet. I don't think that's justifiable to have to start over from scratch. So if we just put a PS or addition in there of a change, increase in square footage, or change footprint and or drip line.
Yeah, that's fine. Now,
Okay,
these, 3-year permit thing apply to, remodeling job.
if the remodeling job required a building permit, same standard. Because when you remodel, more than likely, you're gonna change your footprint. You're gonna change your square footage. Moving the bathroom wall is,
Sometimes
it's
it's just a rule, but anyway.
yeah. The main thing in a remodel, I think it pretty well states that if electric, plumbing have been changed, then you need these inspections. Now, if this were our big, upstairs room, and we decide to put a wall in between the two rooms, make two rooms out of this one big room with no electricity or plumbing, we're free to do it without a building permit.
Now, are we responsible for doing this? Or just,
Tom's the first one that's responsible.
say he's the only one responsible?
Inspections.
I'm not 50 building permits here, keeping.
No, that's not our mission here.
Okay,
Our mission is primarily to give Tom guidelines. And the town
no,
has
time
done it.
limits what you're doing with it.
No.
You're not, you know,
Well, we discussed 5 years, we discussed 7 years, indefinite, and indefinite definitely didn't get a vote. So, that's in our meeting, this joint meeting, we agreed on 3 years with a $75 renewal fee. And the renewal fee does not go in the zoning code of 2024, 25, whenever our trustees approve it. It goes into the fee schedule, which stands alone.
well, Tom's in charge of a lot.
Yes, he is. He gets a lot bigger paycheck than you and I do.
Yeah.
Okay. Sarah, can you tell me what kind of a motion I have before you, please?
Can I-
So,
Can I read something and then see if you want to change it?
Fantastic.
So looking at what's currently in the code and then trying to modify to what we want to do with 3 years. When there,
we may have just gotten disconnected and reconnected.
oh, okay.
It's just letting us know, still recording. Sorry.
The permit will expire after 3 years. A building permit can be extended for 1 year at a time when there are no changes to the original permit. This will incur a renewal fee, see schedule. Yes, it's fees.
Water and sewer.
If you change it,
A lot of building, water and sewer is the last thing you do. But some people like to do water and sewer, when got tobacco there, doing the cleans and all that kind of stuff. But you make a big mess out of a place, doing sewer and septic, leach fields, so a lot of people like to do that last. Like grass, get it the heck out of there. I just curious, you know, what is going to expire, so in the last 5 minutes that you got, you know, get your septic in and all that stuff.
okay, Roger. We currently have a well permit. We currently have an OWTS permit. Those have to be in order before you get a building permit.
They don't have to be installed.
That we have allowed some leniency there, but you definitely will be installed both of them before you occupy.
Oh, yes.
So
No, that's
it's
good.
covered in our ordinances.
So if the place does not qualify for an occupancy permit because the water and sewer is not, that drug in by 3 years, what are you gonna do about it?
There,
Now,
to my knowledge, there's not an ending date on a well permit.
why not? I mean,
Because you're not gonna build a house until you have a well and septic permit and it's in process. We have allowed footings to be done before the septic.
Whole building plan. I don't know, I mean, there's lots of building that, you know, driveway, you don't gravel the driveway until you're done with the whole process, get the heavy equipment out.
But the driveway is not included in the building permit.
Well, it's probably on the plan.
I don't know that it is.
Well, it should be, if you.
And it can be.
Adding the plot plan, show where everything is. Now, I don't think.
We're building a garage right now down here on, Fifth and Courts Lane, isn't it? Phil, what we call it? Yes, it's above Fifth Street. And his building permit shows the driveway will come in off of Fifth Street to the garage he's building today. It is not developed yet because it shows how he's going to get into his 3 garage doors. So there's no problem with him completing his garage. He can't get into it until he fixes his driveway. We're not requiring the driveway to be there in order to get the garage built.
Oh, no, I'm not saying you want it in there anyway, until afterward.
Driveways aren't inspected.
Correct.
I mean, but the driveway included in the garage permit, so that you can just do it whenever you want.
In the one I'm speaking about, it's shown just like the setbacks are from Fifth Street, setbacks from the creek, setbacks from River Street. And it shows the dimensions from the house. But we don't require a driveway to be up to that garage before he can build his garage. And we don't inspect his driveway.
Take 3 years to build a garage, don't get the rock on the driveway, what do you do about it?
That's his problem getting in and out of the garage, not ours.
Well, it expired.
There again, we don't inspect driveways. I haven't, I've never heard of it.
No. Okay,
That's almost landscape.
I'm gonna pull it back to the motion that Jesse was trying to.
You don't inspect septic systems or homes either, that's the point of all this, it's not our job.
We're not inspecting it, Roger. It's our job.
But you're
To make the-
you're requiring Tom to do this? No?
Well, I can tell you, if you would have been at the Board of Trustees and the zoning board workshop, that Tom Gibb agrees with a 3-year expiration on a building permit with a $75 renewal fee at the end. So,
And Ed, I like the way you rewrote my motion. Sarah, did you get it?
So I didn't, but this is what we can do. You could just say motion to accept the verbiage as read by Chairperson Ed Pianalto, and you can just email it to me and I'll input it. So that,
okay,
if that's all right.
that's
And we
fine.
can vote on it as that.
Yeah, you could say, because he read it. And so you could motion to accept what he read.
I would like to second the motion that
Okay.
Mr. Pianol.
You're gonna make the motion.
Okay, I
As I
made
read.
it enough.
Make a motion.
So I'll read the motion. Your motion is to accept the verbiage as read by Chairperson Ed Pianalto with regard to building permit renewal.
Did that include what that definition of a change was? That's Roger's compromise, that the change, he wanted to define what a change was in order to have more than a $75 renewal fee.
Is there board consensus that that's going to make this less confusing as opposed to more confusing?
We're going to define change, so Roger doesn't have to worry about what the word
Okay.
change means. And
Okay.
now the footprint change and or square footage increase.
Okay, so what I have is a motion to accept the verbiage as read by Chairperson Ed Pianalto with regard to building permit renewal with the inclusion of the following. Changes to footprint, square footage,
Increase square footage
okay,
and drip line
In any one of those.
would activate the change.
or drip line constitute
Well, that's when he's gonna start over.
a
We're not gonna just
Right.
renew $75. He's gonna start it.
require a new permit. Okay, so with the inclusion of the following, changes to footprint, increased square footage or changes to drip line requires a new permit.
Yes.
Yes, there you
Okay,
go. Do I have a second for that motion?
I'll second that.
So we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, say nay.
Hey,
So it passes 3-1. And you want me to email that to you, sir?
yes, please. Actually, let me just take a picture. That'll be faster than you want.
Yeah, well, I'm just gonna give it to him. If you can read it. Chicken.
I can.
You can call me clerk.
I will. Thank you.
Well. All right, so third item is demolition permit, demolition structure. That the fee schedule will reflect fees for a demolition. So I can summarize off of the minutes from the Board of Trustees zoning board work session. Tom Gibb had discussed several different kinds of demolition, where some towns have passed restrictions on what may or may not be torn down. He's requested that all the members of the zoning board, Board of Trustees look closely at the demolition. Town needs to know more about this, probably needs a demolition permit. Zoning board member Jesse Garrettson stated the mayor requested demolition permit process be added to the revisions of the zoning code. And he would like the attorney's input to make sure that all bases have been covered. Zoning board chairperson, myself, shared that I've researched the demolition permits. Many towns refer to Regulation 8 from the Department of Public Health and Environment. Following places require a state permit. Some also require a local permit. From Adams County, Greeley, Durango, Rio Blanco County, they all require state and county permits. Silt, Pagosa Springs requires state and county permits. Delta has their own permit. My recommendation is town does the same thing and require the state permit. Essentially, in doing the research on demolition, is that the state requires a permit from the state, a minimum. A part of that permit then is you have to see if any of the material in the building that's going to be torn down has any asbestos or lead in it. And then once that is cleared, the building can be torn down, or if it's not cleared, then it has to be removed. That is a state requirement. That's not a county requirement, nor is it any town requirement. So what I found in doing the research, most of the towns and the counties in the state just go off of the state permit. However, a number do have some type of tracking to make sure that a permit is secured from the state, and then the town or municipality can track it. And before any other construction starts, that's got to be tracked. Some impose a fee, anywhere from, I saw $15 to $75 for that permit. Basically just a tracking fee is what it is. So that's what I had seen on the research out there that I'd looked at for the demolition permits.
And Chairman, would you read the last paragraph also, please?
Oh, okay. Sorry, I skipped over. Zoning board member Jesse Garrettson stated that the nuisance ordinance should be considered with the idea that smoke is mentioned in the nuisance ordinance.
And it came from a demolition that has taken place in Pitkin in the last 2-3 years. And this was initiated to me when I was still chairman of the board here by our mayor because of some concerns of trash and smoke. And I honestly don't know if the state requires the nuisance ordinance to be met. Do you have an idea?
I did not see anything along the lines of the nuisance ordinance in this.
Well, I believe for the town of Pitkin, that's probably important to our residents. The trash and smoke, for example, be dealt with probably even more so than asbestos or lead.
I would say the asbestos and lead is really taken care of under the state mint. And if we want to add, as far as the smoke and that type of stuff, that would then fall under the nuisance ordinance. I guess I'd have to pull up the nuisance ordinance to see if that's currently included in that.
Not mentioned as demolition.
Okay.
And we currently have a demolition that's wanting to get started. And we found out $1,700 just to get them here.
It's just to start the inspection.
Correct. And I believe that inspection has been completed, even though we don't require it as a town, the state does require it.
That is correct. So, and I don't believe, I don't think, I know I don't have even a draft of a demolition permit that I started on. I don't think you hadn't started on anything. Thank you, sir.
They do, point someone that will, give the education on how to do this for demolition. And, allow them to charge the permit. They can decide if, throw like a shed that's falling down. You need one, or if we talk about destroying trailer houses, it can't be all the dumps without destroying them. I mean, what kind, you're gonna specify something so that people can know what we're talking about. I think someone's gonna have to be an expert on that. And I'm not volunteering.
We have history of a demolition that took place in a trailer house right across from the depot, probably 10 years ago, somewhere in there. And the cost for the inspection, and it did have some asbestos on it in the trailer house. And the cost was too pricey, even though it had been condemned by the town, the owners could not afford it. And they wound up giving the 3 lots or 4 lots, I've forgotten what it was, to the adjacent owner if he removed the trailer house with the asbestos in it. And he paid all those fees. And that inspector was from the state. Has it been 10 years ago or more? Time flies. I've been working.
Yeah, I didn't realize the state had ever come into town to do any of that. That's just.
Yeah, they told the town and the owner at the time, when the decree from the town was that it had to be destroyed, had to be removed. And I believe was the word they used. And the owner could not afford it when they came up from the state that it had to be inspected. And if it had to be properly disposed of. And so the adjacent owner paid for all that and cleared the property.
That's nice of the adjacent owner, but, we got some people trailers left in town, and the adjacent owners not going to help out.
Well, they're not condemned yet either, though.
The nuisance ordinance does not address smoke. Yeah.
That's where we're going next.
The only time I am aware in the time I've been up here was that trailer house across from the depot. That's the only thing I know is condemned. Even the Lovato deal over here across from the schoolhouse was not condemned to be cleaned up. It had to be cleaned up because of the health and the threat of rodents and danger of people climbing around on it getting hurt. I don't think it ever went through a demolition ever.
Sounds like something the town council needs to be approached on, whether or not they're gonna get into that business or not. I don't know.
The ex-mayor is the one that brought it to my attention a couple of years ago.
Well, I don't.
After it's on the agenda.
I don't think so. Jurisdiction over condemning houses.
That's not us.
Yeah, I don't think that's the issue is who's gonna condemn it.
Town council.
Well, I think the question, the question that's come up is, do we need to have a demolition permit that we can, at least for the town of Pitkin, that we can track someone that is going to tear down a building has secured the state permit like they need. I think that's essentially where we're at.
As I said, I think the town is gonna have to do some research on, hire someone and say, how much money do you need? The permit is gonna have to reflect what you pay this guy, make an assessment, what to do with the demolition. I mean, these demolitions are not simple.
No, and I don't,
Trailers really is not even got a foundation there. It's parked down and all the way. Just happened to trailer next to me.
well,
Yeah.
to give you an idea, I guess what's happening now in the state is the state requires that the property owner secures someone that's licensed to do that testing. As an example, the property owner here in town just had the tester come in today. They pulled all the samples. They're gonna send it off to the lab, and then they're gonna determine then is if anything, if there's any asbestos or any lead. And if there is, then it's up to the property owner with that company to take care of. And the town's completely out of it.
Why do we want a permit?
Because our mayor told us to look at it. Now, the trailer house right beside you and across from Ed, they did also do an inspection on it, and it was clear of lead and asbestos. So they were immediately able to destroy it. But they did that through the state.
Without a permit from Pitkin.
Right.
So why is that process not working?
Because we have had some buildings in Pitkin in the last couple of years that have been torn down with no permits whatsoever, even from the state.
Yes. And that trash and smoke problem that people have complained. That's where the mayor brought it to me back when I was chairman of this board.
Trash and smoke rock.
That's absolute right.
That sounds like every building site I've ever worked on. You just can't build a house without making trash. It's just the way it is. But demolition is special, okay. Well, if you want to get into that business, fine.
This was very simple when I did my home. I spoke with Todd and Phil, and they were gonna tear the back half of my house off. They were gonna move the existing structure down the street, as y'all know. Phil told me I need to get a state inspector to come out and referred me to a company in Montrose. The guy came out, took some samples of the asphalt shingles, the linoleum tiles, and determined that yes, there was low-level asbestos in those items. And that he gave us guidelines and protocol on how to abate it. So he didn't say we had to have a company, special company to get it. It just had to be abated. It had to be put in a special double bag. It had to be marked with my address on it and my name. It was taken to the dump. Done, and we tore the house down. I mean,
Moved it off.
yeah, well.
Tore the back off.
The back
and
half
moved it.
was demoed in the.
Mr. Chairman, I try to keep the ball rolling here. I make a motion that the town of Pitkin require a state demolition permit and stop right there. When the state's happy, we're happy.
I'll second that.
Okay, so we've got a proposal from Jesse. Motion from Jesse. seconded by Ed. Do we need to rephrase it? You got it.
I just have motion that the town of Pitkin require a state demolition permit.
And stop right there.
Okay.
Don't address nuisance or anything. Whatever the
Okay.
state requires, that's up to the.
Will you accept a public comment? Or is it too
Absolutely.
late for that? So this is Sarah with a public comment, and I am sure that part of the reason this came up was because the most recent demolition in town was right by my house, and the house was burned to demolish a good portion of it, and it smoked for 22 days. And so we had 22 days of smoke blowing at our house, and it affected my children's health and it affected my health, and it was just unpleasant. And so I think that it may, and again, not that I anticipate that this is going to be even happening regularly, but it may be nice to have something on the books that says you can't burn a house for 3 weeks because you have neighbors, and that's rude. Or, at the same demolition, there was no retaining fence put around the area. And so the trash and the ash that had partially burned, it blew into the creek, and it blew into the neighbor's yard, and it blew into my yard, and it blew in. So that was kind of the issue in terms of there was just not really any rhyme or reason as to how that particular demolition took place. And it had a negative effect on several neighbors, particularly my family, because we were the only full-timers nearby at the time. And it would have been nice if the town had already had something in place that would have just kind of helped to keep that a little bit more contained and under control, and maybe the process wouldn't have been quite so long for the burning and the smoke. So again, not that you want to drag this on, but I just felt like saying that piece. Thank you.
And Mr. Chairman, I am not aware of the requirements from the state through their permitting about containment of debris and or smoke, any of those things. That's the reason I would like for the state permit to be required in the town of Pitkin. And if those problems jump up, this is not in the motion, then we need to be brought to the attention of the trustees, which is our Board of Health, on the nuisance orders of smoke.
So the nuisance ordinance, I just read it. It does not address smoke.
Oh, it doesn't?
No. That was in an ordinance having to do with home businesses. There is something in there about.
Okay, because I know I read it, but I didn't.
I think that's what you're remembering. It addresses the accumulation of trash.
Which would be that containment.
Right, possibly that portion of it.
Yes. So if that's not covered in the state permit, and we have the problem in Pitkin, we'll address it from that angle.
Well, we haven't been able to burn a trash barrel full of trash in this town for 30 years. Burning an entire house. Did you give any thought of this calling the sheriff's department?
I did call the sheriff.
What was the result?
They came out and they left. And it wasn't a bonfire. It was just smoldering. So it was producing smoke for over 3 weeks. And
Sorry.
I don't think burning necessarily is unreasonable, but in the middle of a residential area, burning a house worth of wood and allowing it, and maybe not putting it out was kind of the issue. If you burn for a day or two and then you cover it up, okay, everybody can deal with that. I think we can all kind of let that go.
Did you know the individual doing this, or?
I reached out. I did.
Did you contact them?
I did.
Okay. They ignored you?
No, they responded and said that sometimes for progress, you have to deal with a little discomfort. That was the response.
And a lot of that wood was damp. That's really a smoke.
Yeah, my thought on this was, who would you call in the town as a jurisdiction over it? We don't have any enforcement officer in town, so,
Right.
I mean, we could write it in zoning, or the town could adopt something about burning restrictions. We've already got some, add that to it. You know, a fire can't, you know, smoke on beyond a certain period of time, all night, something like that. But I think that's town council decision. I really don't think that's totally zoning issue, because zoning is residential, Main Street, complication, setbacks. I mean, we got enough on our plate. I don't know exactly. I think Jesse had a point there when it comes to nuisance ordinance or something. That's a lot closer to, you know, this kind of thing. I don't know where it fits. And I'm not sure demolition permit, it's just gonna put, like I say, you need an officer, and you take charge of demolition so that you can give him a call and say it's not being done right.
That's the reason I want to put the monkey on the state's back.
They won't come, so you accomplish nothing.
They would come if, I tried to tear down a trailer house that had asbestos in it, and my adjacent property owner got a hold of them, they would come take care of me.
Well, asbestos, yes, that's about the only thing they care about.
Well, I don't know what the state does require, except I do know lead and asbestos are doing their bones.
Yeah, I'm just concerned about local enforcement, which we have very little.
Mr. Chairman, you have a motion and a second.
It seconded, yes, okay. So we have a motion and a second, is what Sarah read. So all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, nay.
No,
So I want to add a little PS here. These are recommendations that the council asked us to give them. This is not that we're making the decision.
okay, can I assume the town council is gonna take charge of this and initiate it?
They can wipe it out, they can
Okay,
accept it as presented, or they can add it to it.
Add or change.
okay.
We're just giving proposals. Okay, so let's move on to bullet number 4, update of Appendix A in the International Residential Code version. In the zoning code, it only states that we follow the International Residential Code. However, we have a current ordinance, number 2, series 2002, that specifies that the town of Pitkin will follow the Universal Building Code 1997 in its entirety as written in version 1. So in the discussion with the board of trustees and the zoning board, we discussed if we should adopt a newer building code. Mr. Gibb stated that the town has until 2026 of July to determine which code it wants to stay with. That's actually the energy code, not the building code. There was some discussion in the workshop about the 1997 code does include the charts for rough sawn lumber that can be used, a rough sawn graded lumber that can be used. And you get past the 1997 code and those charts are removed from the International Residential Code. I think Mr. Gibb had suggested that in that meeting that maybe the town of Pitkin use the minimum code of 1997. And if anybody wants to do any construction that's beyond the 97 code, and they have to have engineer drawings of which engineer is going to be using a more up-to-date code. But the town has at least the minimum codes we follow instead of jumping to the 2018, 2021 codes that are out there.
Mr. Chairman, I'm in favor, or in agreement with Mr. Gibb, our building inspector's recommendations of staying with the 1997. And if a wall has to be taller, work, different snow loader, different span that's covered in 97, we'll look at it then and he will take care of it. But I'm happy to stay with 97.
Any other discussion on it?
I'm good with the 97 copy.
I'll open it up for public comments. If there are any. All right. Do I have a motion then to stay with the 97 UBC codes?
I make a motion that we take Tom Gibbs' recommendation to adopt, I guess it's the 1997 zoning code that we've been using.
UBC, yeah, UBC code. So we're not necessarily adopting it because it's already an ordinance, but we will just clarify in the zoning code that that's what we're using.
What we're using.
Exactly. Okay. So Roger's made a motion. Do I have a second?
Yes, a second.
All right. So we've got a motion and we've got a second to clarify in the zoning code that we are using the UBC of 1997. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, say no, nay. That carries 4-0.
May I clarify who seconded that, please?
Yes.
Jesse.
Thank you.
You got it.
Yes, thank you.
All right. Next bullet point is section 18. Board of Zoning Adjustment, subsection C, under variances. The town attorney had asked that we add verbiage that explains the process of the variance to include first approved or denied by the zoning board of adjustments. And then the appeal process would then move an appeal to the board of trustees. That also should include any variances in the town property as well.
And the one exception that I added to that was if Joe Blow does not agree with the zoning board, they appeal it to the trustees. They don't agree with the trustees, then they can appeal it to the court system county. So they know they have every option possible to express their desires.
I don't think that the county hears zoning.
It goes to district court.
Well, that's if somebody's suing. I mean, if somebody wants to sue the town for something they want, I suppose.
Well, and if I recall the way it's currently written, because it's unclear if someone would, let's say a variance was taken to the board of trustees first and was denied, then the only option that person would have would be to take it to district court. And I think he was asking for clarification that it would go through the process of the zoning board first, then the board of trustees as the appeal process, rather than shoving it to district court.
And a little history, a lot of this came because of a permit that was turned down by the building inspector. And therefore the individual felt like he had no route. And so he challenged the zoning board to listen to it. And we didn't have anything way to address because it never got to us. And I think that's what has brought all this to a head.
This is about variances, though. There wasn't a variance. That wasn't a variance issue. This says add verbiage that explains the process of the variance.
Yes, you're right. Sorry,
That's okay.
I'm out of order. Thank you, Sarah.
That would probably be a good idea, though, for a future meeting to outline a process for that.
I was still trying to find out what part of the joint meeting I was wanting to share minutes from. Mr. Reed mentioned that we need to look section D over and make sure.
So
It states the Board of Zoning Adjustment decisions may be appealed to the Board of Trustees, which is a very true statement.
that's
Probably the chairman's question here to this board, but do we feel like that this section D of section C under section 18
right.
C D. After Mr. Reed brought that to our attention, I feel like it very well sums it.
And that's where I was going back and forth here, looking confused at it, because when you look at the appeals process, it's currently written in the code.
Yeah.
On D appeals, Board of Zoning Adjustment decisions may be appealed to the Board of Trustees. I do believe that's pretty clear.
So it is clear, but I think that perhaps the intent was to potentially put a timeline on the process. Who do you give your paperwork to? How long does the board have to hear it? What can be the expectation for when you would receive the results of the board decision? That might further clarify the process, because at this point, it doesn't give any of that information, but that information is provided, for example, in the variance process. You turn it into this person, you have this many days to wait, then this happens, then XYZ happens. And so this isn't really a process. This just tells you you can do something, but it doesn't tell you how. So it may be that was the intention, was to get a little more detail in terms of how that would look.
So the trustees are wanting more details, or the zoning board? When you go to C, variances, and you drop down to 2, it starts telling you how many days are required for what and how fast somebody has to act, and about the chairman calling a special meeting if necessary. And so I felt like we were lined out as a zoning. Now, whether the trustees feel like there's a lined out or not, I have no clue. So do you believe that maybe that's where they're coming from with this request?
It's possible. That's what it reads in my opinion. But at the same time, kind of with your question, it sounds like if the Board of Trustees is going to be handling an appeal process, that perhaps the Board of Trustees should write the appeal process rather than have the zoning board write the appeal process for it to then follow. But you could ask
The way
how they want that done.
This code is telling us as a zoning board what our process is.
Right,
Now, it's not saying the trustees have the same process.
right.
So I believe the trustees need to form their own guidelines as to maybe the mayor calling a special meeting because somebody appealed something to the zoning board and the zoning board denied it. They felt like it should have been approved, and it gets to the trustees and they got X days to hear it or X days to respond to it. X days, first of all, to investigate it. There's a number of steps that the trustees ought to have after we give the denial to the applicant.
And I guess what I'm questioning with that is under the appeals, whether the board of trustees decide what that process is or whether the zoning board makes a recommendation, do we need to list what the process is under section D of appeals?
I think that would make sense. It naturally follows the course of events.
Right.
Rather than having, if somebody's going through this process and then they get to this point and then they have to go find another document that they may or may not even know exists because it's not even mentioned here.
Correct. Because it's clear that if you want an appeal of a decision of zoning board of adjustments, you send it to the board of trustees. But how do you do that? And when do you have to do that by?
Mhm.
Board of Trustees has direct accessibility to the town attorney. We do
Right.
not.
Correct.
So consequently, bumping it up to them means that they can get professional advice.
So to start that process, do we say the applicant needs to send the appeal to the town clerk to start the process?
Probably. And then, typically anything that needs to go to any board, if it comes to the town clerk, then the clerk can disperse it
Right.
to the members of that board. So it could be that, as part of this process, if somebody wants to appeal, they have X number of days to submit their appeal. And then,
And that's the part I don't know that the zoning board wants to get into to say how many days the board of trustees has to act on it. I think that's up to the board of trustees to decide.
right,
It's very clear in C2B how the zoning board's going to respond.
Correct.
Within 15 days, 15 calendar days of receiving a completed variance application, the chairperson of the zoning board of adjustment shall convene the board of zoning adjustment for a review of the requested variance. Notification of the board of zoning adjustment decision shall be in writing with copies to the requester and to the board of trustees and filed with the town of Pitkin clerk. And it goes on to tell you how first class through USPS mail right on, clear down through G. And then the only thing under D does not say if applicant is not happy with the zoning board of adjustment decision, they may appeal it to the board of trustees. If I were to change anything, I would just say, if the applicant with the variance request is unhappy with the zoning board decision, then they can appeal it to the trustees. That's the only way I would change D.
Well, and I guess just to clarify it under D, when you say appeal to the board of trustees, if I'm the applicant and it's denied by the zoning board, and I'm told, well, it's got to go to the board of trustees, what do I have to do? I think that's all we're getting to.
Well, his option is to accept the decision of the zoning board,
Right.
or if he's unhappy with it, then he has the opportunity of appealing it to the trustees.
I agree. But I think the clarification is, what do I do to get it to the board of trustees?
Oh, so maybe D, we might need to file a request to the board of trustees.
Well, it's where it goes to the
My-
town clerk first.
Yes.
So she
get
can
it on
send
the
it out and
agenda.
get it on the agenda. And then do we allow, I'm looking at taking that section B, 15 days. And I don't know if 15 days is the right number. I think that's the board of trustees that need to decide that. But it goes then it has to be sent to the town clerk within 15 days, the Board of Trustees or the mayor can respond to it, get it on an agenda to review the appeal.
I think that request needs to come through the clerk to get it to the trustees.
Absolutely. And that's the part I think that needs to be added under D, is if the applicant wishes to appeal, they would send the appeal to the Board of Trustees through the town clerk. And at that point, I'm thinking we leave it up to the Board of Trustees if they want to put a time limit on it.
Mhm. When you say put a time limit on it, do you mean how much time they have to file the appeal in the first place?
How much time the Board of Trustees has to act on it.
Okay. Because I don't know if this would be a zoning board decision or a board of trustees decision, but there should be a timeline on filing an appeal. Somebody can't come 3 years after the
I would
fact
agree.
and file an appeal.
It's true.
Well, I would think if I were the applicant and, Chris gave me a variance request tonight and we denied it. If I were in Chris's shoes, I'd go straight to the clerk and get it on the agenda for a week from tonight with the trustees meeting.
Well, I agree. I think most reasonable people would do that, but I think it's also maybe not prudent to assume reason in all cases. So putting it in writing would probably be helpful.
So do we want to make a recommendation of what the Board of Trustees might look at on that process?
I think we're almost required to request it to at least. And it should include things that if the applicant is not happy with the zoning board's decision, then the applicant has a right to appeal to the Board of Trustees by filing such a motion through the clerk.
We want to make a recommendation of within so many days.
Well, we've already made a recommendation to the trustees when we denied. I don't know why you would appeal it if we agreed with your variance request.
No, my question is for the appeal, if we want to put a timeline on how
To get to the clerk,
the person has to appeal that denial.
we've used 15 calendar days here in C. So you don't confuse which date, maybe that's 2 weeks. If I were not granted the variance I desired, I think within 2 weeks, I could get a hold of the clerk and suggest that hearing with the trustees.
So was this another? Ed, we didn't quite do this plan. This folks meeting. Anyway, is this another thing in 15 days if they don't respond? It considered not going to go to the trustees? I mean, what's the 15 days?
That's a toughie.
You know, because some people live out of town. Well, let's face it, 75% of the town is owned by people that don't live here. So, by the time they get anything in the mail, get a response, talk to their attorney, see if they got a case. I mean, there's going to be a lot of approaches to going forward after the zoning board turns down a request that will be researched by someone, probably not the applicant necessarily, because he's probably hired a contractor or something to do this for him. So I'm not sure that a day limit, time limit is appropriate necessarily in this circumstance.
Maybe you have a point, Roger. Again, I think it's the trustees to decide how prompt they want the request to come to them after we've denied the request of the zoning board.
So what if we start that process with that if an applicant wishes to appeal the zoning board decisions. They send their appeal through the town clerk, who will forward it to the Board of Trustees with a footnote that the Board of Trustees need to decide the time frame
Amen.
that
Okay.
will accept a appeal. Board of Trustees, I mean, they may go 90 days, may say no time limit. I don't know.
But Roger's point of the applicant trying to make up their mind, if they want to appeal through the trustees, time he gets an attorney, time he gets an appointment with the attorney, by the time the attorney gives him an answer, we could be 2 months out pretty easy. Depending on how good or how busy the attorney is.
What about if I just put suggestion from the zoning board? Appeals of zoning board decisions must be made in writing and filed with the town clerk. And then you just give it to the trustees and they can decide if they want to put a time limit on it and what that looks like.
I'm pretty much sure that's what they do.
Okay.
Yes.
So I don't think you have to vote. It's just a suggestion. I'll just
Okay.
pass this on. May I interject something that's slightly off topic, but that
Sure.
for a future meeting, can we please discuss under variances, number 2B? Because that's not enough time to mail notification.
Okay, just like where variances to be.
Where it says within
Oh.
15 calendar days.
Can we put C in with that on the agenda, please? Because that talks about the United States Postal Service in 10 days. So what needs to be addressed, I believe.
Well, if C could stay if there's more time before the meeting is required,
Yeah, okay.
is where I'm coming from, but that's not enough time. Because if something happens on a Friday and it's just, it's a scramble.
Yes.
But just for a future meeting, it's just a number and it'd be an easy one.
The
September agenda.
15. Jot an announcement. Forget it now. And I concur with what you're saying, Sarah, because I know on mine, the people
Yes.
who received the letters
The day after,
after
even though they were,
they were
Right.
mailed. I know.
Well, if they're requesting of variance, they want a gift from the town. Ignore our ordinances of setbacks or whatever. And if they're denied, you know, it goes way beyond us. We're not required to give a variance. Variance committee was set up to give variances to non-conforming property. It was not set up to someone with 8 lots, you know, to get a variance. And that got changed over the years, and they said, oh, the whole town needs a variance because we're out of conformance with state law, and went on and on. So now we give a variances for just about everything. But, I mean, this takes a lot of research for the variance board committee to even make a decision on this. So if it gets to the board of trustees, they're going to want a very detailed explanation why we turned the variance down, why it didn't work, or it needs other
Information.
things tied together to make it work. And so the town board of trustees is not going to be equipped to make this decision until they are briefed by someone in the zoning board, either through the minutes that meeting, you know, or, you know, chairman or someone going there and explaining why we turned them down in the first place. The chance that the board of trustees will override zoning board decision is very rare.
If we did due diligence.
If we,
Correct.
yeah, I mean, you know, unless there are new evidence that comes up, and this is period that I'm talking about right here between our denial and when it goes to the board of trustees. If they've got new stuff to take there, it's probably worth their while to appeal or come back to the zoning board for all that goes. I think there should be an appeal to the zoning board. If that is the case, return to the zoning board. Tell us what's new with this. You got special permission from adjoining property owners. You got, your ducks in a row. Whatever they turned you down for, correct the issue, and you're probably good to go with just, not even taking it to the board of trustees. That's just my opinion of it.
Okay, so we're gonna leave section 18 alone for a suggestion to the board of trustees. Move on to the checklist for building permit inspections, including final inspections and certificate of occupancies.
Mr. Chairman, following up from that joint meeting we had, the main thing that stuck out to me is to reinstate the certificate of occupancy. And that was very heavily encouraged by the attorney, no matter which one of the UBC years we used.
Well, and I would add to that, that since our ordinance currently says we're using UBC 1997, there's section 108, and that, by the way, that ordinance says we're using version 1 and volume 1 in its entirety. Section 108 of the 97 UBC code lists all of the inspections that are to be done, starting with required inspections in general. So reinforcing steel or structural framework of any part of the building, in the foundation inspection, concrete slab underfloor inspection, the frame inspections, final inspection, and then certificate of occupancies. And that is spelled out in the UBC code. So I think if we put in the zoning code that we're using the 97 UBC codes, then and the ordinances in its entirety, I think the inspections are spelled out what we should be using.
They are. But do we need to reiterate them in our codes?
What I'll add to that is looking back at previous codes, and I didn't bring it tonight, but I believe the 2002 code had the inspection checklist in the code.
Yes, it did.
And what I liked about that personally is whether it was the contractor or an individual doing my own work, I had the checklist of each one of the inspections for what I need to make sure I met. So I like the idea of having the checklist, at least as a finished zoning code.
Well, partly with your garage construction and our building inspectors inspections and you getting to a point and requesting him come in and verify you've done as instructed, giving you advance to go ahead and put on siding or put on the rafters or put on the sheet, whatever. I think it gives the builder and or the owner CYA.
So my question, I guess part of the question would be if we want to do a checklist, the code doesn't have a specific checklist. I mean, check mark items that you check off. Well, we did have that in the 2002 code. So would we want to use those same inspection lists, or do we want to review new ones. I have not taken the old ones and looked at them, compared it to the 97 code. That it talks about the inspections to make sure it's all covered.
Mr. Chairman, I do not have 202 or 210 with me tonight to follow up on those inspection points. So I think we better table that portion of this so we know what those are and possibly even how to word them.
Okay, I do have 2012 on my computer here. Let me see.
Okay, yeah, well, I'm not, yeah, I'm sorry, I misspoke.
In either way, I would say until everybody can see it. I'm trying to find it. Hang on. Oh, here we go. I would say until everybody can see it and review it, I say we table it, but in the 2012 code, there is a foundation inspection. Check plans for steel requirements, anchor bolts, 1 inch from end plate, 6 inch maximum. There's a dozen items to be looking for.
How does it compare to the 2002?
I don't have 2002. I only have 2012 checklist.
Okay.
Same thing for framing inspection and final building inspection. So there's 3 inspection checklists in the 2012 code.
Well, it's Tom that signs all those off. He's the man that you know. And electrical inspector with the green tag in your electrical box if you pass.
Right.
Plumbing inspector, which is state as well, will be the same. I mean, this isn't rocket science. Final inspection, if Tom is willing to do that. I don't think we need to put any more restrictions on what the definition of a final inspection is. Basically, it's a working bathroom, working kitchen, doesn't require your floor coverage to be finalized, windows and doors. It's not real complicated. If there's safety issues like handrails on your steps or how your steps are built, inspectors will have previously caught that during rough-in inspections. And if they're not corrected, then they have to be corrected, before, final stuff. But, I mean, this is all Tom's job. I mean, I don't know, a zoning board should be. I don't know why the town doesn't require a final inspection. Most loaning institutions require final inspection on a house. Insurance companies, they don't like insuring houses that don't have final inspections on them.
So I guess what we're looking at adding, because all the inspections are to take place according to 97 code that we're following, including final inspection. And the final inspection under 97 code does say to be made after finished grading and the building is completed and ready for occupancy. So that's going to be, I mean, the building is done. Siding's put on, it's finished.
Trim painted.
Yeah. So I guess what I'm saying is if we were to just add the inspections at least to the zoning code, so people see what the checklist is going to be. And that can be the ones from 2012. Maybe we have Tom look at it to see if there's anything he thinks should be different on it. Maybe we look at any other inspections that are out there. I haven't pulled any of the inspections that anybody else has used. But
So are you stating that the 2012 inspection list is more in depth than we have recorded in 1997?
no, in the 97 code, it doesn't list the specific checklist.
Oh,
As an example, frame inspection to be made after the roof. All framing, fire blocking, bracing are in place and all pipes, chimneys, vents are complete and the rough and electrical plumbing and heating wires, pipes and ducts are approved. That's in the 97 code under the frame inspection. Then in the 2012 Pitkin code, there was a pretty lengthy frame inspection checklist. Rough plumbing and electrical inspections completed. Check plans for architectural requirements. Minimum of 1 3-foot door entry. Stairs roughed in with correct width, maximum rise, minimum tread, minimum headroom per code. And it's pretty lengthy check.
That kind of lengthy checklist would be a CYA for the building inspector and the owner and the builder. So that insurance and finance companies, everybody ought to be happy.
I would agree. So, maybe I'll just make a suggestion that we go ahead and table this, the inspections part, until everybody can review what's in the 2012 zoning code, at least those checklists, and then compare that to what's in the 97 verbiage anyway, and then see where we want to take it from there. So I have both of those. I'll email those checklists to Sarah, and then she can send them out to everybody. Email inspection.
I'm happy with that.
Table that one. Okay. Go through the last two or not. Section 19. Section 19 violation subsection B. Clarify responsibility for drafting and mailing of certified letters. Currently under Section 19, Section B. Just basically says if the zoning board of adjustment designee determines that there has been a violation of this code, they shall notify the person responsible for the violation in writing by certified mail to the address of record with return received by electronic mail if available, and shall order that a written response be made to the zoning board of adjustment within 20 calendar days. The date of the such notification shall be forwarded to the board of trustees. And I believe the intent is just to clarify who's going to draft and send that letter as stated in section 19B. Do we want, it says whenever the zoning board of adjustments or its designee determines that there's been a violation of this code, they shall notify the person. So do we want to, and I'm just throwing it out, or do we want the chairperson, the vice chairperson, the town clerk? Because right now it's ambiguous of who's supposed to do it. I think we're just trying to clarify that.
This is just getting back to the trustees. These things become aware of the mayor, and our procedure states that the mayor or his designee shall inspect. So in line with that, I would say that the zoning board chairperson or his designee. And then it appears to me that that chairperson or designee should compile the letter. And it's in my opinion that the clerk then file the letter, send the letter, certified mail, and all of this electronic mail if available. After the chairperson and or his designee has given the clerk the message to send to that person.
Okay, so just to clarify.
Well, it says something about, violation being more or less certified. At that point, the town council should have seen it, turned it over to the clerk to notify the person. But until violation is certified as having happened, it usually happens with an enforcement officer who makes a report, draws it all up, talks to the people involved, find out what the situation is. Yeah, there's a lot more to this than just saying, I don't like what my neighbor's doing next door. I think he's violating the dust ordinance. I mean, it's sort of a big deal, but the town will end up turning this over to their attorney or something to resolve it. I mean, if it's worthwhile doing like that, or sending a nasty gram and saying, oh, well, cool. Maybe they'll, walk away from what they're doing, but, yeah, just drawing up in this making an ordinance that, we're gonna do it this particular way and expecting it to work. I don't think it's gonna cut it. I think it's just a waste of paper.
Well, I think we've got to separate any of the other ordinances outside of the zoning code. Any of the other ordinances, if there's any violations, those are handled by the board of trustees, not by the zoning.
Yeah, and I don't think it's a violation of us, and I don't know why we have to clarify, whose responsibility this is. This is more or less, I mean, we're playing God here when the trustees are really God. We're just a committee writing a zoning ordinance with good intentions. Much beyond that, yeah, I think they're getting something like this. Probably should go to the attorney. In fact, the attorney may be the one that's supposed to write this letter. Maybe, Sarah, you got a thought on it?
Well, I was just gonna point out that within the zoning code, it already says that the Board of Zoning Adjustment has the power to interpret the code as necessary to conduct business, which means that you could read that section and whoever's the chairperson could say, I interpret that as me writing a letter, or could direct the clerk and say, I interpret that as the clerk writing a letter, or any member of the board. I don't think you need to add anything else because the code already provides all the information that's required. I don't think you need to pin it down on one person. I think you should just leave it how it is. And if you need to direct a staff member to write a letter, do it. And if you're going to write the letter yourself, then just do it. And the code already allows that. Thank you.
And if you look at the section A ahead of that, it also gives you guidelines. And I think Sarah's pretty much true there, but it actually falls, to my understanding, it falls first to the zoning board chairperson after he's notified of the complaint. The last sentence in paragraph A says complaints may be submitted by a resident or property owner to the town of Pitkin, which would be the clerk. And then the clerk is the chairperson, way I would understand this. And we don't state that the clerk then gives it to the chairperson. It just says the Board of Adjustments or its designee. So do we make the chairperson the designee, the vice chairperson, or the member at large?
Well, I think the question was who sends a letter? And my only point was that the code already defines that the board can decide who sends the letter if a letter is to be sent. You don't have to adjust anything.
That's correct.
So you could leave it as it is, or you could get real specific, which might pin you into a corner if that person happens to not be available to send a letter. You could probably just leave it as it is and still conduct business effectively.
And they may say, we need an attorney's letterhead to write this letter on, to make it halfway, So a letter from the clerk of Pitkin, Colorado. So we can ignore that, but so it depends on how crucial this violation is to the town, how you should proceed. And I don't know that we're gonna make that call. The town clerk make that call, mayor make that call, board of trustees. Well, this is pretty serious stuff when we get to that point.
So where do we want to go with it? We want to leave it as written?
I have a tendency to go that way, Mr. Chairman, because the zoning, or the trustees in 2022 agreed with it as written.
Okay. So you want to make a motion to leave it as stated? Nope. Got a comment? No, okay.
Just 2 minutes.
Mr. Chairman, do you need a motion to leave it as printed in section 19?
Yes,
Mr. Chairman, I move that we leave section 19 alone.
do I have a second?
I'll second.
Roger, second. Jesse made the motion to leave it as written. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. So we'll leave it alone. All right. And then the last one, duties and powers, clarify responsibility for drafting and posting of meeting notices. For section 18. I'm gonna throw this out there. That what we've currently been doing for the meeting notices, we've added to the bottom of the agenda that anything for a meeting, for a zoning board meeting, needs to be submitted to the town clerk by the Wednesday prior to the meeting by noon. And then the town clerk forwards that to the chairperson. And then at least what's been happening the last several months is Sarah will send it to me. I'll add it to the agenda. And then I send the agenda back to Sarah by Friday noon, where she can post it and send it out to all the board members. I'm going to say that process has been working, I think, quite well. So I don't know if we need to make any adjustments to it or not.
On your bullet point on your agenda item, I added and agendas.
Right.
And that's primarily, the clerk has been posting them at the post office. And anytime they go to the local newspaper, she's been doing that timely. So, now, let me get back to 18B. Duties and powers, I believe.
Mhm.
I gotta find it. Yeah, duties and powers. And the only thing that I question, along with what you just stated, Chairperson, is at the direction of the chair, excuse me, B2. At the direction of the chairperson of the Board of Zoning Adjustments, the town clerk shall post notice of any meeting or board of zoning adjustment at least 24 hours in advance of such meeting. Now, currently, with our clerk, 24 hours, which is Sunday evening, appears to work. But if somebody else has Sunday at Sabbath, do we need more than 24 hours?
So it used to be 48 hours, and we had to skip in the last 8 years a couple of meetings because things didn't get posted within 48 hours. It's not just the regular meeting if the special meeting needs to be held quickly. And this is in line also with the sunshine laws. So that's the reason why the chairperson finalizes and provides the agenda by Friday at noon. I don't post it on Sunday. I post it on Friday.
It's usually posted.
Friday.
Right.
Right.
So that allows for whether somebody keeps Sabbath or Sunday to post on Friday and not have to worry about that situation if that was to be an issue for any future clerks.
But if there were an emergency, this allows you to post it Sunday prior to 7 o'clock.
Right. If there's an emergency, if something comes up and it really needs to get on the agenda, then it could be. Right.
Well, and you know, if I were that clerk and Sunday was my Sabbath, if there's an emergency, locks in the ditch, I would probably work 15 minutes on the Sunday prior to 7 o'clock. So, okay, I rest my statement.
Sorry, anybody else have any discussion on that one? So do we want to make a motion to leave it as written?
I don't believe it's written about the Wednesday nor the Friday noon.
It's not in the ordinance. It's on the agenda. So I guess I'm not certain if it needs to be included in the ordinance, in the zoning code itself.
It'd be real difficult to change it if it needed to be changed. I think just keeping like minor procedures like that out of the ordinance and just an understanding between the parties involved is probably the easiest way to manage
I'm
that.
happy with understanding.
So do I have a motion to keep it as written? Come on, let's go.
Okay, Section 18 is in Herman. Motion to keep duties and powers, clarifying responsibility and drafting and posting meeting notices as written.
Second,
Yes, Jesse James.
have a motion, second to keep it as written. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, no. All right, we'll leave it the way it is. I think it seems to be working well.
Yeah.
And then I've got a note to highlight it. Adding to the variances, section C of variances, the 15 calendar days. We'll put that on the next meeting.
Thank you.
And then we'll also,
Also, section C2B,
where's it at?
that's what Sarah brought in. That was.
Yeah, that's what that's the one I
Oh,
just
that.
said. I had that one in, but there was one we can't take. There it is, sorry. I know where I'm going next month. All right. One last thing is under old business. I think Sarah sent out the updated building permit tracking spreadsheet. Well, I've been pulling this information off of Tom's monthly report to the Board of Trustees. That's right now, that's been my access for information for it. I know he's done a number of permits this month, but we haven't seen those yet. So the good part with tracking this, taking a look at it anyway, is we're seeing more and more of the building permits and construction being completed in a timely manner.
Yes, one question, Chairman.
Yes.
What's our intent of how long keeping a completed building permit listed on our spreadsheet? Is it by the year or the month, or have we determined that?
As I recall in previous meetings, the permits that are completed, we're keeping everything on for 3 years. And then after the 3 years, they're actually on this spreadsheet, they're just hidden. So they're still there,
We're just not printing
but
them.
you're just not seeing, they're not being printed. So, and I don't have anything else to add on the spreadsheet. Unless anybody have a question.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I'm quite happy that our audience has been so quiet. That we're right on time. Even when we ask. Well, I'm glad we took care of your boredom for you. But I believe we've covered everything, hallelujah, that our joint meeting proposed to us for this meeting.
And what I've just received with the zoning code then possibly at the next month is to wrap up a couple of these items that were tabled or we want to add.
Yes.
And then maybe with that, Sarah, if you could send out for the next meeting, any of the revisions you've got on the.
Sure. So I do have some specific verbiage for revisions, and I was actually just looking back, and some of them we don't. So I don't know if you're going to want to have a zoning board work session, and so I can just type out it because the board of trustees will accept the document as you want it.
In its entirety.
Right. You can't. If you send them the minutes with your suggestions, they're going to give you the minutes back and say, put them into the code
Right.
as revisions. So some of these I can do that with. Some of them, I can probably do it with all of them, and I can send it out for everybody to look at. And if you don't like the way that I've worded something, then it can be addressed at the next meeting. That would probably be the most expedient way to get the revisions in the actual code and review them and then pass them on to the trustees.
But
Or another meeting can be held.
no, I personally, I would prefer if you go ahead and
Okay.
type the document out
We'll
and
do
send it
that.
out. We can review it at the next meeting with these other couple of items.
Okay.
But also, you could almost make a packet then for the, like the form, the fence permit form, the different forms that we have.
Okay.
Most of those I think you've sent to us, but if we could have them.
You want it just all at one time though?
That would be good.
Okay.
And then we'll review.
So you want a packet with all updated forms?
Yeah.
You want edits typed into the code? And complaint process. Okay.
All right. So with that, do I have a motion to adjourn the meeting at 9:12? Roger, you ready to go home?
I'll second.
All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Say aye. Thank you.
I almost died, Jesse. I was gonna cut my own throat while ago. He stopped me.
I thought you ran away.
Yeah.
You didn't hear the scream when I went out there?